Somewhere right now, someone is rehearsing an explanation in their head. A text they're drafting for the fifth time. A conversation they're replaying, wondering which word finally broke it. They believe that if they could just phrase it better, someone would finally understand them. They will spend years like this. And the terrifying part is they'll never notice what's actually happening. Because Carl Jung understood something most people spend a lifetime avoiding. People rarely see you as you are. They see you as their own mind allows you to exist. The moment that sentence actually lands, something in you starts to shift. Because you begin to notice that every relationship you have contains two people occupying the same room. There is who you actually are. And there is the role everyone around you unconsciously assigned you. Long before you had any say in it, the good one, the strong one, the dramatic one, the reliable one, the one who's fine. Once a group decides who you are, everything you do afterward gets filtered through that decision. Even your growth, especially your growth, because your growth is the one thing that threatens it. Think about how strange this is. You become more confident, and somehow you get called arrogant. You stop over-explaining yourself, and somehow you get called cold. You set one boundary, calmly, without drama. And people who claim to love you quietly start pulling away. Not because you became worse, because the version of you they depended on is disappearing, and they never agreed to that. Jung's real insight here is what he called projection. The mind's habit of casting its own unacknowledged material onto other people. Most people are not actually interacting with you. They are interacting with their interpretation of you, their fears, their insecurities, their private, unspoken frustrations. Your kindness gets read as weakness. Your silence gets read as insecurity. Your ambition gets read as selfishness. None of it was ever really about you. It was never fully in your control to begin with, because understanding another person requires a self-awareness most people have never built. This is why some people will quietly punish you the moment you change. Not with an argument, with something colder. A shift in tone, a slow withdrawal, a warmth that simply isn't there anymore, the instant you stop playing the part they wrote for you. Most relationships run on an agreement nobody ever says out loud. I will keep being who you expect, if you keep being who I expect. The moment either side breaks that contract, discomfort follows. This is also why so many people come home from being around others feeling strangely exhausted, without quite knowing why. It isn't the talking that drained them, it's the performing, the constant, invisible adjusting of who they are, depending on who's standing in front of them. Jung called the tool for that adjustment the persona, the mask a person builds to survive inside a society that rewards predictability. At first, the mask protects you. Given enough time, it starts to imprison you instead. The kind person forgets how to be angry. The strong person forgets how to be in pain. And eventually people stop relating to each other honestly at all. They relate mask to mask, at break, which is why so many long conversations, hours of talking, somehow still leave both people feeling completely unseen. Every social system quietly rewards this. Families, schools, workplaces, friend groups, all of them run more smoothly when people stay predictable. Because predictable people are easier to place and easier, in some quiet way, to control. So the moment someone changes unexpectedly, the quiet one starts speaking plainly. The people-pleaser learns to say no. The group reacts. Not always with open hostility. Sometimes with a joke, a little distance, a subtle exclusion that's never named out loud. Human beings unconsciously pressure each other back into familiarity. And most people never realize how much of their personality was shaped this way from childhood onward. Smile more, don't be difficult, don't upset people, until an equation quietly forms underneath all of it. If being misunderstood risks rejection, then being authentic becomes dangerous. That is the exact moment a person splits in two. One version stays visible. The other gets buried. Jung called that buried half the shadow. And a shadow does not vanish just because you stop looking at it. It waits, inside sudden anger that doesn't match the situation, inside resentment with no clear cause, inside an exhaustion that makes no logical sense. The longer someone suppresses what's authentic in them for the sake of being accepted, the heavier that shadow becomes, until they no longer know whether the people around them love them, or simply love the edited version of them that's easiest to be around. That question is where real loneliness begins. Not the loneliness of being alone, the loneliness of being unseen, sitting in a room full of people who've known you for years and realizing, quietly, that they've been interacting with a carefully managed version of you the entire time. And the unsettling part is they may genuinely believe they know you completely. Understanding, in Jung's view, was never something most people were built to offer easily. The mind simplifies people into symbols because truly understanding another person costs enormous emotional energy. He's insecure. She's difficult. He's successful. Once a label forms, the mind starts filtering everything afterward through it, keeping what confirms it, discarding what doesn't. Which is why changing someone's perception of you can feel nearly impossible. You are not really arguing with their opinion of you. You are threatening the stability of their entire internal world. Because if they misjudged you, they have to at least consider they might be misjudging everyone else too. That thought is uncomfortable enough that most people avoid it entirely and reduce you back down to something manageable instead. And this is where Jung becomes genuinely unsettling, because he believed that what irritates us most in other people often reveals exactly what we've disowned in ourselves. The confident person exposes someone else's buried self-doubt. The free person reminds someone else of a cage they agreed to years ago and never admitted to. Authenticity doesn't offend people. It confronts them, quietly, uninvited, with the parts of themselves they gave up on. This is why some relationships don't end when respect disappears. They end the moment awareness arrives. There comes a point where a person simply stops explaining themselves, not out of anger, out of recognition. They notice that constant self-justification was always a quiet form of begging. Begging to be seen fairly, begging to be interpreted correctly, begging to exist inside someone else's mind without distortion. But people are never neutral witnesses. They see you through their own wounds, their own fear, their own envy. Even the people closest to you can be the most invested in the version of you that keeps their own world stable. A parent may resist a child's independence because that dependence gave their own life meaning. A friend may quietly discourage your growth because your old insecurity once made them feel steady by comparison. Many people never actually wanted the real you. They wanted reliable access to the role you filled for them, the listener, the fixer, the dependable one. When that role disappears, the connection weakens, not because you betrayed anyone, because the unspoken arrangement simply ended. This is why growth often feels lonelier than the suffering that came before it. Suffering, at least, kept things familiar. Jung is often quoted as saying that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Whether or not those exact words are his, the idea underneath them absolutely is, and he understood the cost attached to it clearly. Becoming yourself disturbs the people around you, because your authenticity forces them quietly to confront their own masks. Someone who abandoned a dream feels an ache around someone pursuing theirs without apology. Someone still addicted to approval feels unsettled by someone who no longer needs it. Freedom, simply by existing near them, exposes a captivity they chose voluntarily and never named. Jung's real project for this, the thing he called individuation, was never about the world finally approving of you. It was about no longer abandoning yourself just to keep the world comfortable. Social approval is conditional. Wholeness isn't. The person still chasing approval keeps asking the same anxious question. Do they like me? Did I say something wrong? The individuated person asks something else entirely. What parts of me only exist to survive? What have I been avoiding simply because acceptance felt safer than the truth? Those questions are not comfortable. Eventually, you start noticing how much your personality shifts depending on the room you're standing in. A different laugh here, a softer opinion there, until an uncomfortable thought arrives uninvited. If you become someone slightly different in every room, which version was ever actually you? Most people avoid that question for an entire lifetime. But underneath all the performing, the psyche keeps its own record. It remembers the anger you swallowed, the opinion you silenced so the room would stay calm. And eventually, suppressed authenticity doesn't just disappear. It turns into a quiet resentment toward life itself. Not because life betrayed you, but because you kept betraying yourself, one small, reasonable-looking compromise at a time. That's the part almost no one names honestly. Self-betrayal rarely feels dramatic while it's happening. It feels practical. You laugh when something actually stings. You go quiet to keep the peace. You soften yourself again, so everyone around you stays comfortable. And one day, years later, you look up and realize the life surrounding you belongs to a version of yourself you built for other people. To be loved for a mask is lonelier than simply being alone, because even the affection you receive no longer touches anything true. That is usually where the real turn begins. A person stops asking, "How do I make them finally understand me?" and starts asking something much harder. Why have I spent so long abandoning myself for people who were never trying to see me clearly in the first place? That single shift changes everything, because it stops pointing outward, looking for better words, a clearer explanation, a more convincing case. It starts pointing inward, toward which parts of you were built from fear and which parts were always simply true. And slowly, something in you stops needing to be rescued from misunderstanding. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your own inner world. You stop exhausting yourself trying to correct every distorted version of you that someone else has decided to believe. Because eventually, you understand something quietly unshakable. Some people need you to stay misread. Your clarity would cost them the advantage they've been getting from your confusion. And once you see that clearly, silence toward them stops feeling like defeat. It starts feeling like the first form of power you've ever actually owned, the power of no longer needing the whole world to agree on who you are in order to know it yourself. If any part of this found you tonight, leave a comment below with the moment you first realized you were being misunderstood on purpose, not by accident. We are a sanctuary for those who think deeply. Until next time.